We arrived in Jackson Hole around 11 a.m. and walked to the town square and visited a couple of shops. The town has about 10,000 year-round residents. Since the beginning of July, however, tourism has increased the population to 50,000. The sidewalks are crowded and the traffic constant. The town literally sits in a hole or valley between the Grand Teton mountain ranges in Wyoming, near the border with Idaho. Just north of the town is the National Elk Refuge, home of the largest elk herd on Earth. In the summer, the elk come to the valley and shed their antlers. The Boy Scouts to collect the antlers, which they auction off as a fundraiser. Our first hike in Yellowstone was to Mystic Falls along the Little Firehole River. The falls are 70-foot cascade type and have a stone promontory that resembles Richard Nixon. Our hike from the Mystic Falls continued on to the Upper Geyser Basin Trail. This trail is composed of a network of paved paths and boardwalks that meander through basin. This is by far the best trail for viewing hydrothermal features at Yellowstone and hosts the highest concentration of geysers in the world. Many of the park's predictable geysers, including Old Faithful, are located here. The geysers and thermal were formed by a magma hotspot. A hotspot is formed when the magma in the Earth's core breaks the surrounding mantle and bursts through the Earth's crust. In some places along the trail, the magma is a little more than 60 feet from the surface. Major eruptions at Yellowstone have happened 3 times. The last one occurred 640,000 years ago and was 2,500 times larger than the May 18, 1980 eruption of Mount St. Helens in Washington state. The eruption dome collapsed, creating a sunken giant crater or caldera on 1,500 square miles in area. Our hike of the Geyser Basin ended at the Old Faithful Inn, which has a full view of the Old Faithful Geyser. With its log and limb lobby and massive stone fireplace, the inn is an example of the golden age of rustic resort architecture. It is the largest log hotel in the world and is designated as National Historic Landmark. Giant Prismatic Spring is the largest hot spring in the United States. The spring is 400 feet in diameter and 200 feet deep. The flow of 160-degree water at 500 gallons per minute flows from the spring into the Firehole River. The vivid colors of the spring are caused by microprobes at the edge of the mineral-rich water. Our next hike was around the western end of the Grand Canyon of Yellowstone. The canyon is a breathtaking sight. 20 miles long, the canyon is up to 4,000 feet wide and 1,200 feet deep. The steep canyon walls are covered with sparse vegetation, nesting ospreys, swaths of vivid colors, and an occasional buffalo. In addition, the waterfalls, some dropping more than 300 feet, are spectacular. The canyon was formed by erosion. Cracks in the magma dome prior to the eruption of about 600,000 years ago created crevices in the Earth's surface. Glaciers covered the area, and as they melted, water flowed through the cracks and crevices, causing erosion at an accelerated rate. To complicate matters, geothermal activity created a geyser basin in the canyon which heated the rock, making it softer and easier to erode. This also explains the varied color seen on the sides of the canyon. In fact, the yellow seen on the canyon walls is the result of the cooking of iron compounds and not from sulfur. We left the canyon and headed to Yellowstone Lake Hotel. The hotel is one of a series of hotels built to accommodate visitors to Yellowstone National Park in the late 19th and early 20th century. Built in 1891, it was redesigned and expanded by Robert Reamer, architect of the Old Faithful Inn, in 1903. It was designated a National Historic Landmark in 2015. Yellowstone Lake is the largest high-elevation lake in North America. It is 20 miles long and 14 miles wide, with 141 miles of shoreline. It remains so cold all year that swimming is not recommended due to hypothermia. In the morning, we took about a 3-mile hike around a short peninsula on Yellowstone Lake called Storm Point. The trail starts at Indian Pond and meanders through a large open meadow where wildflowers and occasional bison are seen. The path then drops into the tree line until you reach Storm Point. Storm Point is a windy projection of rock that juts out into Yellowstone Lake. There is a marmot colony on the point and they are easy to spot and are fun to watch. Grizzly bears are known to be in the area, so visitors typically carry bear spray in the wooded areas of the path. Located in the northern part of Grand Teton National Park, Coulter Bay sits on the shore of Jackson Lake. The lake was formed by a glacier and was enlarged by the construction of the Jackson Lake Dam in 1911. The lake is primarily used for irrigation for crops such as potatoes in neighboring Idaho and is fed by the Snake River. Jackson Lake is one of the largest high-altitude lakes in the United States and is about 15 miles long, 7 miles wide and 440 feet deep. The water of the lake averages below 60 degrees Fahrenheit even during the summer. After lunch near the beach, we hiked along shore of Coulter Bay. The trail is about 3 miles long and forms a figure-8 shape along the peninsula that forms the north shore of the bay. The hike gives some wonderful views of Jackson Lake and the Tetons, as well as winding through the nearby woods. From Yellowstone Lake, we travel to Jenny Lake in the Grand Teton National Park. The lake was formed 2,000 years ago by glaciers. The glaciers carved out the Cascade Canyon. The resultant rock flowed down the canyon and formed an enclosed berm, creating the lake. The lake is one of the most visited areas in Grand Teton National Park and the park's centerpiece. Trails around the lake and up the canyon along Cascade Creek provide spectacular views of rock outcroppings, waterfalls and wildlife. We hiked halfway around the lake and up the Cascade Canyon. The canyon hike has two popular sites, Hidden Falls and Inspiration Point. Both were crowded with tourists. Continuing up the canyon, the crowds thinned and we paused to see two moose grazing on the shore of the creek. After a picnic lunch under a lodgepole pine, we descended back down the canyon and took a boat back to the visitor's center. Our final hike for this trip was at the Lawrence Rockefeller Preserve. In 1927, John D. Rockefeller, Jr. purchased a dude ranch near Jackson Hole and much of the nearby land for the expansion of Grand Teton National Park. He retained the ranch for the family. In 2001, the 1,600-acre site was deeded to the park and converted into the preserve. The preserve has meadows with wildflowers, 8 miles of paths and a lake. The preserve's forests are predominantly composed of fir, spruce, and lodgepole pines. Low plants grow in the wetlands, providing food and cover for migrating birds. We hiked an 8-mile hiking trail along the shore of Lake Phelps to the large granite rock with a 20-foot drop into the water. The water temperature was a cool 60 degrees, so we opted out of the jump. On our last day, we took a float ride down the Snake River. We took a van from Moose and traveled about 10 miles upstream to Deadman's Bar. We boarded the float raft there for the return trip to Moose. The float ride provides the best views of the Teton mountain range. Even though the sky was overcast with a slight haze from the fires in the west, the views, although not great, were still magnificent. The Snake River is formed by small streams in Yellowstone National Park. The river starts out flowing west and south into Jackson Lake. Its first 50 miles runs through Jackson Hole, a wide valley between the Teton Range and the Gros Ventre Range. Below the town of Jackson, The river turns west and flows through Snake River Canyon, cutting through the Snake River Range and into eastern Idaho. It eventually, after about 1,100 miles, empties into the Columbia River near Pasco, Washington.